Let me get you some more news now. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi's just concluded visit to Russia was an extraordinary testament to the enduring bond between the two nations. From the grandeur of New Delhi to a warm reception in Moscow, the visit underscored shared values and aspirations. The discussions spanned diverse topics from their special and privileged strategic partnership to cultural exchanges. The talks reaffirmed Modi and Putin's commitment to mutual growth and prosperity. The visit highlighted the respect and camaraderie between the two leaders, reflecting a strong foundation of friendship and cooperation. 9 agreements were signed on the occasion. Syed Absarul Hassan puts the visit in perspective for you.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Russia signifies a momentous chapter in the enduring relationship between India and Russia. Throughout the visit, Prime Minister Modi emphasized the shared values of democracy, sovereignty and mutual respect that have long defined the Indo-Russian relationship. He underscored the importance of economic collaboration, stressing the potential for growth and innovation through joint ventures in sectors such as technology, energy and defense.
मैं मेरे देश के किसानों को फर्टिलाइजर में मुसीबत में नहीं आने दिया। फर्टिलाइजर की उनकी जो आवश्यकता है उसकी पूरी करने में हम सफल रहे और उसमें हमारी मित्रता का भी बहुत बड़ा रोल है।
During PM Modi's 2-day visit to Russia, New Delhi and Moscow signed 9 MOUs and agreements in several sectors, including trade, climate and research. These 9 agreements include MOU to facilitate further increase in trade and joint investment projects between two countries, MOU for establishing joint working group on the issues of climate change and low carbon development, MOU for cooperation in the study of polar environments and their variability by sharing resources and data and logistics in polar regions, MOU for cooperation and collaboration on broadcasting between Prasar Bharati and ANO TV Novosti, Russia Today TV channel, MOU to ensure availability of high-quality medicines for human use through exchange of information and capacity building, cooperation agreement to facilitate settlement of civil law disputes of commercial nature. India's Prime Minister Modi was conferred Russia's highest state award, the Order of Saint Andrew the Apostle, for his outstanding efforts to promote partnership and friendship between India and Russia. He was the first Indian leader to be conferred with such award. On Tuesday, Prime Minister Modi addressed the gathering of Indian community in Moscow for the first time in his third tenure. He lauded their contribution in enhancing the India-Russia relationship. Prime Minister also visited the All-Russian Exhibition Center. The two leaders toured the Rosatom Pavilion. PM Modi laid wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier in Moscow that is dedicated to the Soviet soldiers who lost their lives during the Second World War. Indeed, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Russia marked not just a chapter but a milestone in the enduring relationship between India and Russia, a relationship built on trust, respect and a shared commitment to a brighter future for generations to come. Syed Absarul Hassan's report for DD India.
Addressing a special briefing in Vienna on Prime Minister's visit to Austria, India's Foreign Secretary Vinay Mohan Kwatra said India has been consistent to point out that dialogue and diplomacy are the only solutions and not war.
We clearly brought out that the dialogue and diplomacy and not the battlefront war is a way forward in finding a solution to this. In discussing this, Prime Minister was also very clear that whatever contribution India can make in arriving at that peaceful solution through dialogue and diplomacy, we would be very, very happy to make that contribution.
Speaking on India-EU relations, the Foreign Secretary said negotiations are ongoing for a free trade agreement and it has to be prioritized at a quicker pace.
India-EU free trade agreement has been under negotiation for over 23 years. Prime Minister Modi and Austrian Chancellor agreed that this is an awfully long time for discussions to have been dragged on, and they agreed that this is something that both India and the EU should prioritize in terms of taking it forward at a quicker pace.
After the official engagements, several prominent personalities met India's Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, in Vienna. Among them was Dr. Anton Zeilinger, who is a 2022 Nobel Prize winner for physics for his work on quantum entanglement. He met Prime Minister Modi after his summit meeting with the Austrian Chancellor in Vienna.
It was a very pleasant discussion. We discussed about spiritual things. We talked about the possibilities of quantum information, quantum technology, and about how the basic fundamental ideas of quantum physics. But I experienced him as a very spiritual person. And I think this is a feature which many leaders, or more leaders in the world, should have today.
And India's Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, also met 4 Indologists, Martin Ginzel, Birgit Kellner, Borrain Larios and Karin Preisendans in Vienna. All right, joining me for more on the Indian Prime Minister's visit to Austria and Russia is Mr. T.P. Srinivasan. Mr. Srinivasan is a former Indian ambassador to Austria, is also a former permanent representative of India to the United Nations in Vienna and governor for India at the International Atomic Energy Agency, also in Vienna. Ambassador, welcome to DD India News Hour. Now, how would you describe the optics and outcomes from the India-Austria talks?
Well, both optics and substance appear to be very good as far as I can see from here, because it's an open society, an open country, very friendly with India, so nothing could have gone wrong. Of course, the EU trade is not Austria's responsibility alone. It's a long, old story. And the fact that the two leaders have agreed to speed it up gives you some relief. But I myself dealt with it, and it was always on the threshold of completion. But something or the other, because several states are involved, it kept going on. But otherwise, bilateral relations, I don't know the details, but I'm sure they must have all been given a new, a new life in that sense, because two leaders, when they sit and discuss, many things will come up, and those may have been resolved there. But certainly, the optics-wise, they were all very friendly and very went out of their way to be comfortable, make the Prime Minister comfortable. Of course, Moscow also, there was no immediate problems, but the problems there are much more difficult.
Right.
And Prime Minister was pushing something which President Putin was not very attentive to. There's the war, he has his own plans, and he did not seem to have shared his plans with the Prime Minister. So that's a disadvantage. But on the bilateral front, Russia visit was very substantial.
Okay.
A number of things that they have agreed on, from military to space to science to various things, agreements have been reached, and it looks as though this is one of the most significant joint statements recently coming out of Moscow.
Right.
And it's elaborate, and it may cause some concern among some people that India is getting so close to the use to Russia, because it also involves defense and supply of technology and space and nuclear. Particularly the nuclear aspect may cause some concern in even India, that Kodankulam is to be expanded. Kodankulam itself, even now, it is not considered perfect or safe. So that may cause some concern in India itself.
Right.
But no other country is coming forward. That was the expectation earlier.
Right.
France and the US were supposed to build reactors in India, but they have turned away from that, and therefore our only option is the Russian And since the Kudankulam belongs to the same kind of reactor which had caused an accident, there is some concern
Right.
about that. But that expansion is also very important from our perspective, because after the nuclear deal with the United States, we haven't got a single reactor from any country.
Right.
So this is the only way out for us to expand our electricity program.
Indeed. Ambassador, you've served in Austria for about 3 to 4 years. Correct me if I'm wrong, but between 2000 and 2004?
2001 early and 2004.
Right. Now, Austria swears by neutrality. It is written into the country's constitution. No wonder then that Austria is not a member of NATO, and that fits perfectly well into the messaging of the Indian Prime Minister's visit to Austria, is it not?
Yes, that was the very purpose of his going to Austria, to point out that he has nothing against Europe, nothing against European Union, nothing about Western civilization, none of that. And so he didn't want it to be just a visit to Moscow with all its complications and possibilities. So it was a clear signal that we respect sovereignty and freedom of countries, we respect all systems, and we are able to work with everyone. We have to be close to Russia at this point, because we have several reasons to build our defense and also develop our technology.
Right.
And for that, not many are forthcoming. There are difficulties after G20. You know that India has been paying a price for our success, because since then there have been so much of publicity against India in the Western media, particularly United States and UK. And that had vitiated the atmosphere. In fact, they even spread rumors that India will rig the elections and so on. Now nobody is talking about that. That is out of the way. But still they have suspicions about India's democracy and so on. So this has to be rectified. And this discussion with President Putin himself and also Austria may have clarified some of those thoughts.
Ambassador, you spoke at some length on both India-Russia and India-Austria ties. I have to ask you this in the larger context, the big picture that's coming out from his visit to both countries. Now, Prime Minister Modi says that dialogue and diplomacy are the only way forward for global peace. Now, that global crises cannot be resolved on the battlefield. Can India, or is India ably suited and equipped to play the role of a peacemaker?
Well, that is not the intention. I don't think we have any intention to mediate between Russia and Ukraine, because there is no possibility. Many countries in the world are ready to do that. But ours is more a kind of advice as well as a warning. And that is what he has done also earlier when he said that this is not the age of war. So the same thing he reiterated. But what the Western countries are wanting is that we should denounce Russia, which we are not willing to do, because we have so many connections and we have so much interest, because we do not belong to a military alliance of any kind. And therefore, we need to have friends everywhere. And that is why we are working with every country, because we have to have our connections, and we have connections with the West. We have joint exercises with several Western countries, and how can you exclude Russia? So it's a simple and pure logic. And therefore, our advice is that, and that of course is not a new advice, everybody knows what it means. Pandit Nehru spoke only about peace in the initial years. So this is an Indian DNA, we would certainly say that. But that may disappoint some people, that we are not doing anything more than that. But there's nothing more we can do. Because if they want to stop the war, what prevents them from stopping it? So obviously, they have other interests, and that is why President Putin was very quiet about that particular aspect. On terrorism, he was very vocal. He said terrorism must be stopped, and we both have dangers from terrorism. And that is understandable. But beyond that, wars themselves, particularly bilateral wars, and a war waged by a permanent member of the Security Council, that is a very serious matter. The permanent members of the Security Council are expected to stop wars, not start wars and then veto. So there is fundamental flaw of the United Nations which is being exhibited. So these are not things cannot be solved very easily, but we give our counsel and express our views. And that is our freedom we always exercise. We are quite forthright in saying these things to any country.
All right, we leave it at that. Ambassador Srinivasan, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts and views with our viewers at home and abroad. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.